series of the 10 things that every church program should do if they're starting or even improving an old security program. We've already gone over the first four, and let me just touch on those real quick. Uh, get executive approval, then do a baseline risk survey of some sort. Then start with what you have, then keep it simple. Those were the first four. Today, we're going to talk about five is keep it legal. So when we're talking about the legal side of things, it really has more to do with self-defense laws, penal codes, and licensing issues than any other legal parameters. And if you know in that, if you see in that, you'll notice that I didn't say anything about concealed carry. And that's often the first thing that church security teams think is the legal parameter of operating a church security team is do we have to have a concealed carry permit? It's like I often tell news stories. I told a news interviewer today that it's not about guns. The legal things you deal with have so much more to do with self-defense law than anything else. And that changes from state to state. You've got to know what your self-defense laws are in your area. You've got to be familiar with the penal codes, and you've got to know what your licensing issues are. Now, let me just talk about licensing issues for just a moment. At last check, there were 41 states that regulate security licensure from the state level. There were, of course, 9 that do not. And to give you an example, Colorado is one of the 9 who do not regulate licensure at the state level. But before you get too excited about that, understand it's regulated from only the jurisdictional level in Colorado, which can be complex to figure out. For example, for many years when I was working with others to get the New Life program started, there was this local ordinance that said security operators had to be licensed and they had to wear a uniform and had to wear their firearm exposed, and it could only be 38 caliber or smaller and had to be a revolver. Now, this is just 2005. This is not ancient stuff, even though it sounds ancient. But what we discovered was I went down and spoke to the city licensure people. And what we discovered was that did not apply to a volunteer security team at a church. There was some very difficult to find language in the law that defined that as a paid person. So I told him, I said, okay, so paid. And he said, yeah, like a security guard company. I said, what if the employee of the church is also the one covering security? He had never had that question posed to him. This was 2005. He said, I'm going to have to research that and get back to you. Well, his answer was, yes, they would have to be licensed. The guy who came in after him at the city interpreted the law differently. No, if they're only performing at the business where they're paid, it would not require them to be licensed. So you see, even the people who were administering the law disagreed. One read it one way, one read it the other. It can be really challenging to understand what the licensure regulation is for your area. And if you're in an area that's managed by state laws, you must become very familiar with those state laws. And that changes, and even the branch of the state that looks after those licensure issues is going to vary by state. In Florida, for example, and my friends in Florida know this, it's managed by the agricultural department of the state. I don't know why. It seems like the most unfitting uh, agency in the state to manage security. But that's who manages it in Florida. So you have to get into the agricultural department's regulations to find out what they require for licensure to do security. Now, there's some efforts to change the law in Florida, and I think I'm hoping some of those will be successful. I worked with Texas for 6 years to get the law changed in Texas, and we finally got it to where volunteers can serve in their church without being licensed. That happened in 2017. It went into effect the very month of Sutherland Springs attack. Excuse me, it went into effect in September before the Sutherland Springs attack in November. So when you're talking legal, you got to know what your licensure requirements are, what your self-defense laws are, because self-defense really applies to what you're doing much more than laws, so to speak, for law enforcement. They're on a totally different level. Take, for example, arrest capabilities. Almost every state defines the correct procedures for conducting a citizen arrest. You must make yourself familiar with your state's laws for citizen arrest. And if you're in a state like Colorado that does not regulate security from the state level, you've still got to look at the state level requirements for self defense, including citizen arrest, because security or not, self defense laws apply to your security operations. Now, I want to give you one of the most helpful advice nuggets that I can in this realm of keeping it legal. And that is this: don't try to be a Google expert. For one thing, I know how that works. People will keep looking for Google responses that more align with their feelings of what it should be than what it really is. Here's what I would recommend you do. If you're a small church, see if there's an attorney in your church. If you're a large church, see who's the best attorney in your church who will volunteer to be part of your team. Ask them if they'll volunteer to be on the security team. Tell them, I'm not wanting you to carry a firearm. I'm not wanting you to patrol on Sunday morning. I'm not wanting you to be ready to respond to medical incidents. All I want you to do is help me answer questions as they come up as we're developing our documents. And please help us know where to find the right laws and then how to read those laws. Find somebody in your church who can come alongside you and help you as you do this.